Yes, hello everybody. Welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow. This is the Wednesday night chat. Just a few of us getting together, have a bit of a chat about all things motorsport. Might be a very quick show today. I've had my own sort of red and yellow flag moment, and I've got the oil dry now. I've managed to smash a 1 litre bottle of olive oil all over my kitchen floor at the moment, and it's very very hard to clean up. So I've got to get onto that before I get in there. But the oil dry is down, and we'll see what happens. I don't have any cement in lieu of cement dust, or I've used bicarb. So we'll see how that goes. What's that?
You can use kitty litter.
Yeah, well that's great. But yes, but to have kitty litter, I would need a kitty. I have bicarb soda, but I don't have kitty litter, and I'm not going to buy it because I can do other things with bicarb soda. There's very little else that you can do
tonight. Yeah,
that we can do with kitty litter. So anyway,
now, tell me, this olive oil, was it extra virgin?
Yes, it certainly was. Of course, it was.
Mm-hmm. Australian?
I would have nothing else. Yes, it was Australian. Yes, it was just the
one in the square bottle marked Cobram, because that is awesome.
Yes, it was actually. It was there. It was I got it when it was on special. It was a litre bottle. I'd used about that much of it, and I just and down it went in the whole bottle. And so glass and olive oil are everywhere.
Good evening, Seth. But is the extra version, is that the purple or the green one? Those just miles will add to the Euro.
The colour is actually referring to whether it's a strong, medium, like whether the flavour it comes through.
No, yeah, but what colour bottle is the extra virgin?
It was green.
There you go.
The bottle itself was green. But anyway, we've got welcome to some of the regulars who are joining us. Mad Cow Mark is joining us again. Evening, Mad Cow Mark. Bonjour to Box. Yes, it's the yes, the 24 hours, the Le Grand Prix de l'Endurance at the Circuit de la Sarthe coming up this weekend at Le Mans is the 24 hours. We'll have more about that a little bit later on in the program.
At 10 o'clock tonight, our time. Is it Brett on your post earlier?
Yes, 9:45. If you've got Stan Sport or the WEC app, they are actually covering the first practice session, which I don't think they did last year. I think they only covered qualifying and hyperpole, and of course the race. Whereas this year they if you haven't had Stan Sport before, or if you happen to have a separate a second or third or even fourth email address, you can sign up for the 7-day trial and grab it for nothing, which means you don't only see the Le Mans 24 Hour this weekend, but also, of course, they're televising the Speed Series from Winton. So if you want to catch up with the Speed Series from Winton as well, and you can get hold of that 7-day trial for nothing, which is not a bad thing. We don't really have any sort of news going on the bottom because I got caught up with the chaos of the oil spill, so didn't have time to
oil down in Brett's kitchen.
Yeah, so yes, as I said, the red flag. Speaking of flags, we must say a very big congratulations to our mate Roger Churnside. Well done to salutations and all the rest of it to Roger the Hat. Roger, of course, one of the most experienced and well-liked flag marshals around Victoria, been a part of the local scene for years, has been a regular at Le Mans. I caught up with Roger many years ago, and on a couple of occasions at Le Mans. He's back there this year, and he was given an award, the same award that Christian won a couple of years ago for international marshals, and Christian was there to sort of help present that, and so well done to Roger, and congratulations. I know that'll mean a lot to him. I mean, because he loves Le Mans, so good on you, Roger. Have a safe few days and a good few days. He'll be getting ready to fire off now because they'll be in there. I imagine the support racers are practicing already. By the way, the Le Mans Cup the Road to Le Mans, will be, if that's not on, as far as I know, it's not on Stan Sport, but it is free to air or free on YouTube, and we'll have links to that on the In Pit Lane website. But if you want to watch that, that's the race for the GT3, LMP2, and LMP3, the one that Valentino Rossi is competing in this year. So there's a lot of extra interest in that this year. So let's find out what's been happening. Well, we've had a Grand Prix there, and I struggled to even write anything about it for this week's show because it was so desperately dull. Peter, we got a problem with Formula One now. I mean, really, I mean, it was just the way things are going. It's like if everything goes according to plan, Max Verstappen is going to win every single round. If he doesn't win it, there's a chance for Sergio to come through. But Sergio's not going to beat him. He's not going to be any challenge to him at all. Yeah,
I think
was it as dull as I thought?
it was, and I think we have a slight problem. I actually thought that the reason why I said the other week was that there wasn't any need to panic before the summer break is because I thought they would bring their upgrades, and because of Red Bull's restrictions on the wind tunnel, I thought they would catch up a little bit. But then Red Bull brought upgrades. But then I remembered that there's actually between the time in the wind tunnel, there's a long lead time between actually manufacturing your upgrades. So I think what they have done is used up a lot of their wind tunnel time for this car, but they've also got to save some for next year, for next year's car. But yeah, I don't know that it's going to make much difference. The Mercedes were better. They were second and third, so they were better. But I don't think that. I think it's I don't know that much is going to change.
Yeah, it was disappointing, and then of course I watched the IndyCar race on the streets of Detroit. Terrible circuit, as bumpy. They talk about Calder Park, and more about that later. They talk about Calder Park being bumpy and not fit for. By God, Calder Park is a billiard table compared with that Detroit Grand Prix. I've never seen open wheeler cars bouncing around so badly. It was absolutely terrible, but the racing was fantastic. It was a great race. Lots of passing, lots of action, and there's quite a few. And it's interesting. Will Power has come out just recently and said, like all of the popularity in the United States about Formula One. He said, I don't know what all the fuss is, because he said in your own backyard you've got a series that is much more competitive and much more entertaining, much more.
And I think with their push to pass, they have a restriction on the amount of times they can use it, don't they? Whereas
yes, they do.
Every overtake is done by a DRS in Formula One, and it's just they just.
In Formula One's defense, they did have over 100 overtakes at Spain on the weekend.
DRS, which is unrestricted.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the difference with the push to pass, and they've now introduced it into S5000 as well, rather than the DRS, is they work in different parts of the. You can be more strategic with the push to pass because you can use it basically anywhere you see fit. So, if you want to get it, if you know you're particularly strong or your opponent is particularly weak out of one particular corner or at a particular part of the track, you can save up and you can sort of, build up your reserves of power to the maximum, and then you can hit it at the right time, and you might surprise them. You might get, whereas everybody knows where the DRS is going to go, and if you've got 4 or 5 cars in a row, all within a second of each other, then everybody's got DRS and it's pretty much useless.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what have we got here? We all have 2014 was just as dominated. Yeah, I don't know. Well, what do you think with the history, Pete? I mean, it has. I remember sort of going back to the domination of the Lotus 78s back in the day with Mario Andretti and Ronnie Peterson. I mean, and at least they were sort of swapping. They were swapping wins occasionally between them. I mean, yes, there's nothing new about. We had that time where we had Mercedes obviously dominated for a long time.
And Williams have.
Williams. I just think perhaps is it is it the fact that Sergio is not consistently putting pressure on Max, like in the same way that that Nico Rosberg did with Hamilton and
Yep, yep.
Is he allowed to put pressure on Max?
I think he is. I think it was just the last Grand Prix. He made a mistake in qualifying, and
Everyone
I think
just said
he
that
is.
Max is on a different planet according to everyone else at the moment, and I'll use those words. So that's almost word for word. He's just absolutely in his own realm at the moment. It's just he's in a sweet spot, and sometimes people hit those points in their careers, and he's young, he's motivated, and he's just absolutely flying. And even if you did put 18 other people in the same car, they may be still a tenth off.
I think if you put any driver from that field in that car, you'd be at the front. Max is given the best car and the best opportunities to win. A lot of the failures of the other teams are in tactics. Straight up.
Well, certainly for a lot of Ferraris. I mean, Ferrari's still not a good car, but they have made some shocking tactical mistakes.
We'll do. They still go through the alphabet of plans.
Yep. Choose one.
Yeah.
Stick to it.
Ferrari are just a rabble in so many different ways at the moment. They've got the potential, and they just seem to find a way to just bugger it up. But yeah, I mean, Aston Martin have made some big inroads this year, and you've got the Mercedes have got their upgrades. I mean, I pay particular attention to George's and Hamilton's.
And Aston Martin are about to receive some upgrades themselves. So that's
yeah. I mean,
the way things are going, if Mercedes doesn't get a hurry on, Aston is going to become the second team or second from the front team. Especially
they're already the second team.
Well, in that case, they become the first ones. Alonso winning races would be a good thing.
I think a little bit. I really enjoy the Silverados and Merck's cars, but I think they got caught out drinking their own bathwater a bit towards the end before Red Bull actually just went, well, head down, bum up. We're going to try and beat. We're going to try and inroads. And they got caught sitting on their hands for a while. Now they're scurrying, especially when they're supplying engines to their satellite team and they're getting beat by them. So that means you've got a little bit too big for your britches, I think. Whereas other teams in the past, when they're trying to catch up their main rivals, they're certainly not getting beaten by their engine supplying payments. So,
but there are games starting between Christian and Toto, which is making life interesting.
It has been for a couple of years. There's always been there's been some good throwaways for a while.
The B spec Mercedes, and he's saying things like, "Be careful with your salary cap," and
yeah, it's funny. I mean, and it shows you how the Netflix series has moved into other areas. I was watching What Culture Wrestling the other night, and one of the reporters there started talking about Toto Wolff as sort of as being this wouldn't he make a great wrestling heel manager? He's just he's so evil and and it's like
doesn't his son wrestle or something like that? I think.
I not that I know of.
I think he's only got young children.
Yeah, kids.
Someone here in Australia has got a son that wrestles. I can't remember what it is. Is it Dennis? That's right. Dennis Cometti's son wrestles.
Dennis Cometti's son was wrestling, and our mate Joe Perotta from drag racing and sports sedans, his niece. She was wrestling. She was with the WWE and NXT for a while. Unfortunately, she lost her contract there, but she actually took the name Persia Perotta as her ring name. So she was easy to spot. But she was in for a while and probably made some very, very good money in the year or so that she was over there. So good luck to her. But. Yeah, also coming up the next round, and we've got this, I know this is, take with a pinch of salt. This is from Grand Prix News, and they tend to have a lot of clickbaity sort of stuff, but they're saying that there is literally a cloud hanging over the Canadian Grand Prix, the next round of the championship, because of it says smog. It's not actually smog. It's actually something we well know. It's smoke from bushfires in and around the Montreal area, and they've warned people basically to stay at home. And there's been some apparently there's been some talk in the local media of like, well, is it a really good thing to have with all this smoke around and with all the conditions so bad and with everybody sort of looking out to fight the fires? Is it a good look to have the Grand Prix running around? So at the moment there's no threat to it, but as I said, it's coming from Grand Prix news.com, but
I think that's a different situation to Imola, where there literally was all the emergency services and things assisting with people in the floods. I think this is this is in Montreal, and the bushfires would be out somewhere a fair bit away. So I think it's a bit. And I don't think there'd be as many emergency services in the Montreal area helping with the bushfires. So I think it's
you wouldn't think so.
No. Yeah.
The other thing is the ground effect cars move a lot of air. They'll actually clear the air, won't they?
Well, you could argue that.
Yeah, the lap times even enough.
Well, there is actually the argument that has been used, and it was put forward by the FIA in some of these arguments, saying that the Formula One cars are now so efficient that the air that they suck in and burn and use in the engines comes out the exhaust now actually cleaner with less particles in it than it did when it went in. So
that was the same with the last generation of Saabs driving through New York City. The air coming out the tailpipe was cleaner.
Yeah. So whether that's true or not, but I think Chris is trying to. You're still muted, Chris.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's pretty easy to do in a place like New York.
Yeah, from what I've heard, yes. Yeah, I haven't been, but apparently it is. Well, once again, like a lot of places, it's a lot cleaner than it used to be. I mean, sort of. And if you're going to talk about sort of not having races because of smog, you'd never ever run at Macau, because that's one of the smoggiest cities.
Oh,
that
did
I've
I
ever been
just
to
see
in
some
my life.
news? Speaking of Macau, did I see that it's back on the GT calendar this week? I saw something.
Yeah, the World Cup, the GT World Cup, which has been a part of the meeting in the past, is coming back to Macau this year. They've the Chinese government have dropped all the restrictions, and so they're going to revive the World Cup of GT racing. Basically, for I think it's 16 cars. Each manufacturer can put up a couple of cars. So so that'll be good. Unfortunately, I think at this stage the Macau Grand Prix itself is still going to be for local Formula 4 cars, not for the regional Formula 3 like it used to be, which is a bit of a shame, because it certainly doesn't have the excitement and the cachet that it used to have, and that's right down in terms of things that were victims of COVID. The Macau Grand Prix probably got hit more than most other events. It hasn't come out the other side at all. But anyway, so anything else, Pete?
What's
anything
this
else?
Stuff about the? Oh, sorry, I'm reading the things and seeing the Americanization of Le Mans. What the heck is that about?
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll move on to Le Mans. Yeah, Toyota. There are safety car changes at the Le Mans 24 Hour this year that Toyota and a number of teams are very angry about, because essentially they're following the sort of the American, almost the NASCAR approach, that in the past they've sent out, because the track is so huge, they've sent out 3 safety cars to neutralise the field, and basically to keep everybody sort of separated and keep the field apart. This year, they've decided to basically do the NASCAR thing and have the waiver rounds. And the problem with having a waiver round, it's fine on on an oval or even a short road course, but when your track is like about 10 kilometres, 14 kilometres or something, it's going to take a while to get people back into position. And Toyota are saying, well, you build up a you build up a really good gap over the rest of your opponents, perhaps by as much as as a lap, and suddenly there's a full course yellow comes out, and and they bring the safety car out, and everybody will be behind that one safety car, and for safety reasons, they'll bring all the hypercars together, they'll bring all the LMP2s together, and then all the GT cars together, and so any advantage that they've stretched out will pretty much disappear. So it'll be a closer race, but as Toyota was saying, it's a bit contrived and possibly a little bit dangerous when you've basically got all of those cars, sort of 50 plus cars all together again every time they start.
That does make sense. The three safety cars was always a thing at Le Mans. You'd expect to see the three of them.
Yeah, it was interesting that that they would have that thing. But these are the results. They was testing last week, of course, and as you can see, the Ferraris were actually fastest in the prologue. Antonio Giovinazzi set the quickest time, so that was interesting. The Oreca for Team Yota. Pietro Fittipaldi was fastest in LMP2. They've also done very well. They're running a hypercar, the Porsche, the Heures Team Porsche in hypercar, and a good weekend for Ferrari, because Ferrari's dominated GTE with Thomas Neubauer for JMW Motorsport setting the fastest time for GTE AM. The interesting thing for GTE AM, of course, is that there is another car running around this year in the Garage 56 configuration, and that is, of course, a very, very modified NASCAR. A Camaro, which is being driven by, amongst others, Jimmy Johnson and Jenson Button. And to absolutely everybody's shock and horror and amazement, it's actually lapping faster than the GTE AM cars. The thing's got no aero, but it's also totally. It's also got an engine that's totally unrestricted compared with the GTE cars, and of course, being a NASCAR, it's pumping out around 780 to 800 horsepower, and on the long Mulsanne straight, it's absolutely screaming. So,
wonder what the top end is, what the top speed is there along there too.
I haven't seen any top speeds. I haven't seen any of the top speeds really gone out.
I'd like
there.
to see
Is it still running the normal? Is it still running the normal 4-speed gearbox? Because if so, and the rear end, those things can be at 200 miles per hour.
Might be running the same gearbox, but they would have changed the diff ratios for sure. With obviously they're such a straight, but someone get a hairdryer out, please, and get a gun on it, and let's just get a comparison to some of the other classes. It'd be fantastic. Yeah.
If they're running a de-restricted motor, that can be 900 horsepower. And if they've got the gearing for, say, one of the super speedways like Daytona or Talladega, that thing is going to be seriously quick. It's not going to be quick out of the corners, but at the long end of the straight, it's going to pass everything.
Well, it doesn't have, because it's got such little downforce on it. I mean, it is very, it's not, people are saying, well, it's a NASCAR. It's probably, as someone said, it's probably much closer to an Australian supercar. Someone said it's probably like having a supercar with 850 horsepower in it, rather than, and no wing.
No downforce.
Yeah. So very, very little downforce, but it's obviously really fast in a straight line.
The best part about it is the drivers are used to it as well too. They're used to driving that style of car, so that's their forte.
Yeah, and even the LMP2 cars, some of the drivers are complaining, saying, well, in the twisty bits, of course, we are much faster. Once again, we get on to if we come up behind them to pass them, if we don't get past them in the twisty bits. If we can't find a way past, it's very, very hard to find a way past in a straight line, even with an LMP2 car.
Oh, you might have to use some racecraft.
So
yes, exactly.
As SB saying, the NASCAR and also the Cadillac Hypercar sound amazing. When we were listening to Radio Le Mans last week for the test, you certainly knew whenever either one of those cars came by. I mean, it was sounding great, but every now and again you just hear this thunder of it was like the NASCAR just went past. Like I don't think we have to tell anybody the NASCAR just went past. I think we sort of figured out the NASCAR.
Doesn't add a bit of spice to it, though, let them do something different. I mean, it's not outrageous, it's not unsafe, it's not too out there, but it's great that actually they've let something, someone's got a sense of humour, someone's got a sense of occasion, I think, to let something run around like that.
It's also, I mean, it's it's the 100th, and they're obviously trying to suck up to once again the American public. And what part of the way they're doing that is the
go there.
Is the start. We've got it.
You're gonna go there.
LeBron James is the honorary starter of the event, and for the one look, in any other year, I mean, we've had sort of actors before. We've had Brad Pitt and Steve McQueen, you can understand, but we've had Brad Pitt. We've had other sports people as well over the years. Famous French tennis players over the years have done it, and French politicians and singers and all sorts of people. But this is the 100th anniversary, and people were saying, well, wouldn't it have been far more appropriate to have had someone like Henri Pescarolo as part of that, or a Tom Christensen or Jackie X or somebody like that, one of the legends of Le Mans, to be the official starter. So, and then of course, unfortunately, it's also got caught up with the whole sort of American woke culture, and I'm not watching Le Mans anymore because it's all goes woke because they got a black basketball player going on. We're not going to watch that.
They can't switch
off. Hang on, doesn't LeBron James own a motorsport team?
No, that's the other thing. See, it's I think it's Michael Jordan who has the Bubba Rogers. Bubba Rogers runs for. So
I get their sense of occasion, but they could have picked They could have picked a sports star associated better than what LeBron would, because he has just no association.
Hey, there we go. Hassan K is saying bonjour from the south of France. You're at the wrong end of France. Hassan, you need to be up north and to the west.
Well,
normally I would say you're in the right part of France, but this weekend, very much the wrong part of France.
He's closer than we are. Give him that.
Well, yes, he is. He's a lot closer, and I'm sure the weather is. I'm sure the weather is much better, and the food is great.
Over there, where he is too, instead of actually.
Yeah, there's no problem about watching it. It gets very good coverage on French in the French media.
Very good.
Is also saying. YF has changed the game a few days before. You're back to the old BO. Yeah, I think that BOP, balance of performance, has reared its ugly head, and that's why people are a bit suspicious about what happened at the test last week, in particular with Toyota. Everyone said, wow, the Toyotas were surprisingly off the pace, because Ferrari was so quick. The Porsches were much quicker than we ever thought they would be. The Peugeots, some people thought they would improve. They don't seem to have improved terribly much. But the good thing is, the top 7 hypercars in the test were separated by less than a second. So that's around a track that big. That's pretty damn good.
That is great. That's awesome. Yep. Excellent. It's getting a big build up. It has shown its promise, and look, it's hopefully it doesn't disappoint over the next few days. It's going to be absolutely thrilling when you can get 5 minutes in the crazy hours. Brett's used to it, but we'll definitely watch it with enthusiasm. And if you're going to watch a highlights package, just to catch up on things on YouTube every now and again.
Yeah, and of course we'll have all of the We'll have probably highlights and news on next week's edition of In Pit Lane as well. If you don't catch it up, and I'm sure there's plenty of stuff on there'll be plenty of stuff on YouTube. Unfortunately, the highlights package that FIA WEC puts out, and it's not just the YouTube stuff; it's the official media release as well, is not particularly good. I mean, you've got these long distance races, and they cram everything into about 2 or 3 minutes, and it's like. And here's some footage of the LMP2 winner, and it's like literally 4 seconds of footage. And it's like, so, winner and Team Yoda in the, I have no footage left. They really cut it together really quickly, and it might look good if you put some rock music behind, some dance music behind it. It might look pretty cool, but to actually use it for anything of any use, of any real use, it's pretty much it's damn near useless.
You had a little bit of a tour de sickle yourself over 3 days too, didn't you, Brett? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just gone. Cycled around the place by the end of it.
Well, I didn't cycle, but I certainly
Watched the
travelled.
cycles.
Yeah, certainly travelled around. We went up to the bikes up at
Go Friday. Keep it in order. Friday first.
Well, yes, Friday, of course, went out to Calder Park, and everyone's wondering what the hell's happening at Calder Park. Well, on Friday, Drive Events had their test day. Now, these are going to be regular events. I think it's every second Friday they're going to run these. Not a huge turnout, but quite a few cars turned out, a diverse range of cars. We had Rand McClurkin Sports Sedan was out there, the Nissan. He was running that. We had a couple of old Oz cars in the place. Tim Macro Racing had a couple of radicals out there. And look, everybody I spoke to out there about the track, who was out there driving, said that look, the track is fine. It's bumpy. It is slippery coming onto the main straight. Even though they
virgin olive oil from Brett's place.
Yeah, well, it's not as slippery as my kitchen floor is at the moment, but it was obviously coming onto the main straight. It's because they're going over the concrete now. It's not that they've got the traction compound down because of the drags. That's all clean now, but they've still got the concrete launch pad, and simply there's not a lot of rubber down, particularly racing rubber to make it sticky as they come onto the main straight. But everybody there said, look, there's no problem. You'll see it. You'll see on the show tomorrow night, but more particularly on the YouTube version, because I had so much stuff, so many long interviews that I didn't have time to fit them all into the Channel 31 show. So you'll get some first-hand accounts from a lot of the drivers. Nash Harris from the Saloon Cars were there, and he said that, look, he said, I'd race on it tomorrow. He said, if they said, do you want to race, the state round, we'd run.
When are you going to release that bonus content onto YouTube, Brett?
Well, that's tomorrow. That'll be at 9:30 tomorrow night after it goes to air, after the main show goes to air.
Beautiful. So
on Channel 31.
Onwards.
Also, while as I said, I did catch up with Tim Macro. He was out there. He did go out later. He wasn't there to drive though. He was there basically as team manager for a couple of guys running their radicals and sort of preparing through Tim Macro Racing. But I had a word with him about Calder Park, his memories of Calder Park, but also spoke to him about the situation regarding supercars at the moment and what the situation is with S5000 and Joey Mawson. So so anyway, you see, this has got a lot of comment on online on Facebook. So let's
the S5000 is probably the most difficult car you'll ever drive. I can't do Bathurst. I've got 20 years worth of motorsport experience. Over the years, I've only done 4 rounds of Super 2, so theoretically, I can't drive. So, I've won races, Joey's won races. The guy has been up the front in European racing. People used to come out of Formula Ford. My brother came out of Formula Ford straight into supercars and did a perfectly good job. So they're just trying to keep it closed. I don't understand. It's actually quite annoying, to be really honest, because there's so many good categories around Australia and they're suffering because it's not a pathway to anything. So they really need to sort it out, because if you can drive an S5000, you can drive anything in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's true. Now, the interesting thing is, there's been a lot of comment on that, and they've got the defenders of supercars saying, "Well, hey, they're the rules, they're the regulations." The problem is they are not. It's not a super license thing, as in problems with Motorsport Australia or the FIA or anything. Joey Mawson has all of the licenses and all of the experience he needs to race supercars, and so does Tim, for that matter, and Nathan Hearn and a lot of other drivers. They've got what they need. The reason this is basically, in my opinion, this is third-party dealing, which is very much illegal, and the ACCC should be having a look at this, because this is essentially supercars saying, if you want to jump in, if you want to get a drive in the main game, if you want to drive a supercar at the top level, you have to basically buy a minimum number of drives in Super 2 in order to get there. So they're basically saying you can't have one without the other. Now, to me, that is third party dealing. That is, you can't buy this without buying this first, and you're not allowed to do that. What does everybody think?
How does that affect like the standard thing that used to happen for Bathurst? Is there was a guest driver brought in from overseas, international guest drivers. This sort of thing would rule out those guest drivers.
Special
well, I bet you it doesn't. I bet you it. I imagine if tomorrow Red Bull turned around and said, "Hey, we're going to have a wild card entry for 888, and we've had a
Button coming over."
Yeah, we've got or sort of Dan Ricciardo. He's not going to get a Formula One drive.
Return to Supercars.
Oh God, not anybody but Jarks. Jarks they might kick out.
Hang on, Doc. Doesn't Jensen still own the lap record at Bathurst?
In a Formula One car, I think, yeah.
Yeah, the outright lap record.
I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't want to put a big full stop on it, but look, Tim has some very good points. They've been well publicised by not just Tim in the past. I think he's just he's a sounding board or an echo for what's the biggest boat or cruise ship that's in the world these days? How many thousands and thousands of people can it fit? I think he's on the same boat as what all the rest of us are on our opinions and our thoughts. And that particular supercars are a law unto themselves, and unfortunately, there's so many of those problems in their category at the moment. And look, you could just start. You could go on for hours on debating on how bad it can be or how it can be improved, but. You know what? They're not going to listen to anyone, I don't think so, as long as they keep...
Well, they need to listen to the ACCC, and that's why I'm surprised no one's taken it. It's the same with Peter Adderton, like with his request, as Paul Vandenacker is saying, like if Paul Newman was still alive, would we get the annual rumour? I mean, that was, for as long as I can remember, it was it was on sort of, press F2 on the word processor at Auto Action, Paul Newman for Bathurst, ? And the answer every year was no. But... yeah, look, as I said, if any of the Formula One drivers, if Daniel Ricciardo, as I said, if Red Bull said, we want to put Dan Ricciardo in a 888 Red Bull car alongside, say, Mark Webber or Liam Lawson or any of their drivers, I am sure that there would be no problems at all from supercars. This has got nothing to do with the safety or the capability of the driver, no matter how much they argue it.
What's that?
And they've used this before, because years and years ago, for many, many years when we started the program, we had accreditation to the media accreditation to the supercars in the early days when Tony Cochran was there. They took it off, and the excuse they used for me and others was it was a safety issue because I was not a full-time professional journalist, and therefore I posed a hazard to drivers, spectators, and other media staff at the track because I wouldn't know what to do. Now, I took that to the ACCC, and the ACCC basically agreed with them and said, "Oh no, it's car racing is very, very dangerous. You can't just let anybody in." It's like, look, I've been doing this for bloody years, longer than most of the people.
The only hazard you are to Brett is yourself, and we'll leave it at that. And go if we keep going. So, but yeah. Stuart's nodding away there, so thank you, Stuart, for backing me up on that. We've both known him long enough. However, it is they make the laws until finally someone challenges them in some sort of legality or reasoning. They will bloody damn well try every trick in the book as well, though. It'd be a great popcorn moment for a while until it is. However, they'll just flip and flop the way they want. And yes, there are certain factions within the supercars teams that would definitely get more favourable responses, and the rules get bended for them than other ones, which is a dead.
The point is, I mean, Joey Mawson. Sorry, Pete.
We have had in the past at Bathurst American drivers that went straight into wildcards, and yet I think it was Nathan Hearn who got bitten by this super license thing at Bathurst.
Yeah, I mean, how stupid was that? I mean, they let Alexander Rossi and Was it Joseph Newgarden as well, or was it
how many jumped in a Gold Coast?
Hitchcliffe?
Was it Joel up at the Gold
Well,
Coast?
yeah, I mean, then you had a whole pile of internationals coming. You had Will Power, you had Sebastian Bourdais, you had a whole bunch of people coming in. So it obviously didn't stop them, and they had no experience. And this is the thing: they need specific supercar experience, because supercars are so radically different and so much more difficult to drive than any car in the world.
The best touring car in the world we've got, so they need to have a super license to be in ours.
Yeah, no, it's purely because of money. It's a commercial decision, and it shouldn't be allowed. And I think Motorsport Australia should step in pretty quickly and say, no, look, here is the pathway to a super license, and S5000. If you win the CAMS Gold Star as the Australian Drivers' Championship, as a matter of course, you've earned a super license.
Yep.
Yeah, but you haven't coughed up enough money into their bank account, so
yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, there we go. All right, we'll move right along. So the Speedway Expo on Saturday was a great experience.
Yeah, that'll be on tomorrow night. Once again, didn't have as much time to sort of put their. We'll get back to the Winton Speed Series in a moment, but so the Speedway Expo out at Melbourne Exhibition, Melbourne Showgrounds, was really, really good. It was a surprisingly big turnout. They had lots of people exhibiting, and they actually turned people away. I spoke to, and you'll see tomorrow night, an interview with the CEO of Speedway Australia, Darren Tyndall, talking about the success of the Speedway Expo. They doubled it in size from last year, but he said they still had to turn people away. So next year they're probably going to get an even bigger venue again. Lots and lots of people turned up, lots of families. There were heaps of kids. I mean, Speedway is that sort of sport. There's lots of families, lots of kids were there. It was really great. It was very impressive. So. Spoke with a lot of people out there, and they were all very happy. A lot of the exhibitors said that no, we're really behind this. Then they had their awards on Saturday night as well. So it was a big weekend for the Speedway community, and congratulations to them, because the Speedway Expo was really great. And when it comes up, it'll be on the corresponding weekend next year, at probably still at the showgrounds, but once again on an even bigger area. So. Check it out. It was really good. Paul saying looks like World Series Sprint Cars will be back. They had a presence there. They had some posters up, and basically, so they are planning on bringing World Series Sprint Cars back. So I think what's probably driven them is the success that the drag racing guys have had with Top Fuel. And with the Australian Top Fuel Championships, and the final of that, of course, is coming up at Darwin next week as part of the Triple Crown. That's on the Saturday night. You'll see the final round of and that'll be covered on television on 7+, free-to-air television. So you might not be able to watch the supercars free-to-air. Well, I think last year Seven did telecast. I think it might be one of the ones that they do because it's a.
I don't think those this year. I might be wrong, but I don't think
the FPAA rights.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is they announced the new Australian drag racing series and the Top Fuel Championships, the calendar for next year, and Darwin remarkably wasn't on that calendar. Now I'm assuming it's some sort of it may be some sort of money thing, and there may be some announcement coming up at Darwin next week because it's enormously successful, that meeting. I mean, because you've got they call it the Triple Crown. You've got the supercars and the superbikes at the same meeting running during the day, and then on Friday and Saturday night you've got the drags, including the top fuelers. Great weekend, fabulous value for money. If you go up there for the 3 or 4 days, you're going to get some good weather, some great food, and terrific racing. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
On to Sunday.
Yeah, well, Sunday was out at there, and Virtual R. Roy is with as well. Roy was up there as well. Up at the up at the Broadford State Motorcycle Centre. It was really, really good, beautiful day. It started out as I looked out in the morning. I thought, oh no, it was like pea soup fog, and it looked terrible. By the time I got out to the track, it was absolutely gold. It was probably about 19 degrees, even into the low 20s over the course of the day. It was a beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. Great racing, lots of fun. The people were fabulous to deal with. Just made such a difference. So many people who came up and said, how much they enjoyed the interviews with Tim and Darren on the show a couple of weeks ago, and thanked us for that. They were really appreciative of it. Tim Large, who was our guest, we'll give it away if you don't know already, made his superbike debut and won all 3 races. So congratulations to Tim. That was a really good effort. But there were a couple of big crashes. One in particular, and if you've been on our Facebook page, you'll have seen the end result of that. It happened literally sort of right alongside of me, so I wasn't, the camera wasn't wide enough to catch it, but we certainly got the end of it. And remarkable that Lee Ramstein, who went over, but the bike just basically went up and just kept going up, and eventually just dug the tail into the track and just flipped over, and he was flat out at the time, so it was God knows what speed he was doing, but it was flat out. So was very lucky to get away with it without more serious injury. Thanks, Russell saying thanks for covering really appreciate it, and we will do more. There's the next round, in fact, isn't in Victoria. It's actually at the Bend Motorsport Park in conjunction with the South Australian guys. And one thing they did have there, and you'll see it tomorrow night, is they had sidecars were out there. I haven't seen sidecars for years. And they had a good little field of sidecars out there, and so you'll see some
always regular at Broadford. I used to
you'll see that tomorrow night on the program at 9:00, just on the news as well as there. But I didn't get the interviews I wanted because after the accident, there was people sort of were a bit upset and wondering. They were very concerned, obviously, with how Lee was because it was a huge crash. And so people weren't in the mood to sort of sit around and say, I had a great race and da-da-da-da. So, and I needed to get away. But Roy stayed and got the supermoto. That's the other thing they had. They had supermoto. And as I said, it's like rallycross for bikes. And they had that at the end of the day. They had 2 races there. And Roy got footage of that. And you'll see that footage on tomorrow night's show as well, along with the results of that. And great weekend. Fabulous weekend. And I believe Roy said the supercarts are up there this weekend. So if you're not going up to Winton, or if you're not watching the Le Mans 24 Hours, and you're looking, because I said during the live stream that I did from the phone, I said I'd really love to see supercarts around this place. And as it turns out, they're going to be there next weekend, or this weekend. Mm-hmm. So. They're really good. Great venue. Lots of fun. Lovely people to deal with. Okay. SB saying, what's everyone's thought on the Formula One movie being produced at the moment? Pete, is that the Brad Pitt one?
I think so. Motorsport Formula One movies are often fraught things. The best one I saw, at the risk of people throwing things at the screen because they might have seen Grand Prix, but the best one I saw was Rush, which was actually based on fact. So I think unless it's based on fact, it's going to be a bit fraught, I think. And the plot, they were going through the plot on a recent Formula One telecast, and it sounds a bit,
it does.
Follows a Formula One driver who comes out of retirement to mentor and team with a younger driver. Okay, so it's Days of Thunder with wings.
So it's loosely based on fact again.
Not really.
Not really.
No. Because the driver, which driver could come out of retirement and come back into Formula One, right? At any age group, and None.
Well, it almost, I mean, it almost writes, you know what the story's going to be. Just reading the synopsis, you know what the story's going to be. And of course, he will be an American driver, no doubt. And that immediately, like a star. And I'm sure that the young driver will probably be another young American driver as well, because as we know, American drivers are enormously successful in Formula One. Very few people other than American drivers ever win. Don't know how this Verstappen, he must have American in him. Surely, I mean, certainly his old man spent plenty of time in America. So,
looking at the cast, the Formula One, the young Formula One driver is going to be an Englishman.
Okay. Well, is he going to play an Englishman?
Well, isn't it Idris Elba's son?
Well, that doesn't mean anything because I mean Idris Elba himself has played Americans plenty of times.
Yeah, and he can do it convincingly.
We'll have to wait. Well, the jury's out, SB. So there's your answer to your question, mate. What do we think of it at the moment? We don't have enough information on it, I suppose. You've just got to wait for a little bit more and wait for the fanfare. That Hollywood will be all over it, whether it's a flop and anyway, and they'll be.
As Paul said, Rush took too many liberties with the facts. Take note, Lauda is listed as his country as AUS rather than AUT, so he became an honorary Australian in that, and we'll take him anyway. Also, as Roy is saying, the only way an American can win in Formula One is to make a movie. That's pretty true. Paul saying Grand Prix and Le Mans, two favourite movies. There's the story and the acting in Le Mans is terrible, but the cinematography. It was just amazing, and that was the thing that just drove me to like one day I've got to go there. One day I've got to see that race and if you haven't seen it, please go out of your way. Even just the opening sequence of that, the opening credits of that, the title sequence of that movie, because it really did define the way television and media covered Formula One for probably 20 years afterwards. I mean, the whole way they covered the grid, the sound, everything about it was just magic. So, and then you've got to consider that this was in the days before GoPros and tiny little cinema 4 and 6K cinema cameras. Have a look at some of the photos of what they're doing. They actually strapped people to racing cars.
The photo of Steve McQueen lying on the track, getting a photo of the cars getting airborne coming over a hill.
Yes, as Paul's saying, there are a few documents on the making of Le Mans. The one by Steve McQueen's son. I think it's Chaz. We spoke to him. He was on the show when he came out here for Motor Classica a few years back. Really, really nice guy. We had quite a long chat with him at Motor Classic. Actually, were you there, Doc? Or were you there? Yeah, we did.
Sorry, I just got a message from my brother. Keep going. It's not urgent after all. Go ahead.
Okay. Were you the year we interviewed Steve McQueen's son at Motor Classica? Were you there that day?
Yeah.
I forget because we had someone. I've had someone with me, but yeah, we did we did the interview with Chad McQueen, and he was a really, really nice guy, very down to earth, and talked about that doco. And yes, Steve McQueen took a lot of liberties and took a lot of risks to get that movie up and running. He was very, very keen to make sure nothing was going to stop him. He was the biggest star in the world, and it was one of them. Well, if you want me to do anything else for you in future, you're going to have to do this, because I want to do this, whether you want me to do it or not. Because the studios were saying, Le Mans, what the hell's Le Mans? But and there you can see him set up. There's his helmet cam.
It's happened many a time over in Hollywood and also other movie factories around the world. The backstory behind movies, how they're made, sometimes can be just as famous as the movie itself, or even in rare occasions, even more famous. So, yeah, when there's enough background footage of the making of the movie, it certainly can catch people's eye, especially if the director and the producers and everything like that are willing to contribute about the making of it. And if it does have some special Accounts. I mean, have a look at that picture we're looking at on the screen right now that Stuart's been able to provide for us, and racing
is that a piece of wood?
everywhere.
It certainly looks like a piece of wood, doesn't it?
In the middle?
That is a bit of,
okay, so that's carbon fiber. That's carbon fiber.
Oh well, it's a bit of man-made timber that's being thrown in between to balance the camera.
Wrapped in gaffer tape.
Yeah,
Paul,
I think that's over there. The weight to balance the camera.
Yeah, Paul has put up there. Apparently, that Chad McQueen doco is available on YouTube. Don't know whether it's legally available on YouTube, but it's there. So if you're watching now, perhaps write that down. Write that down quickly, or do a search on YouTube to try and get hold of that. And if you're looking for something to watch in the lead up to this weekend's Le Mans 24 Hour, then that would probably be a good one. Also, SB also saying fewer yet again events desperate for flaggies this weekend. Once again, lots and lots of things happening. As we said, the supercarts up at Broadford, the Winton, the Speed Series is up at Winton. I'm sure I know that both Phillip Island and Sandown, I believe Sandown, I say that every time I go past Sandown on a weekend, there seems to be something on there. I was talking with people out at Calder Park, and they said that Calder, that Sandown is pretty much booked out solidly for the next 2 years, and that's as long as they're taking bookings at the moment. But it's pretty much totally booked out. So so much so that somebody who wanted to book it for sort of a drive day had the only day they could get was Friday. There was just nothing in the next 2 years. So that was there. But yeah, they're looking to have enough people at the Bend because there's the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Asia event is happening there, plus the prototypes. So they've got a big meeting out there as well. So you've got that and Speed Series and Supercarts, and I don't know what they're going to do about it. I really don't know what they're going to do about this because there's simply not enough flags to go around. And talking to a few of them just recently, a lot of them are just saying we've had enough. We want the occasional weekend off. Because at the moment there's a lot of pressure on, particularly but we need you, and flaggies being flaggies are saying, oh, yeah, all right, I'll do it then. But you've got to give people a bit of a break every now and again. So yeah, I think in terms of motorsport movies, I think Paul got it right. Herbie Fully Loaded. Right, I think the Love Bug. I think the original Love Bug actually. Herbie was running at the Monaco Grand Prix, so Herbie's.
There's two problems with that, and one of them is alcohol related.
Okay, I got that from.
But the other two are in frame.
Yes, thank you for that, Stuart. But anyway, so that's Herbie Fully Loaded. I haven't seen the second one, but I did see the Love Bug when I was a kid, and even then I thought this is really, really silly. But anyway, it's a bit of fun. Just quickly, Doc, before we go, because Le Mans practice is going to start in about 15 minutes. So any bike news you want to throw at us?
Yeah, there's a bit of not much. There's two. We've got two MotoGPs in it coming up in 2 weeks in a row. We've got the Italy and then we've got the German MotoGPs. But the biggest news that's circulating at the moment is not MotoGP, but who wants to be back in MotoGP, which is Alvaro Bautista, which has been dominating the Superbike for the last couple of years, ever since he left MotoGP. He's on a duck. He's just crazy. I think he's won some trip. I think he's won 14 out of 15 races for the year.
He's dominated. He's been the Max Verstappen of superbikes.
Yeah, some insane amount. I think he hasn't won one race, whatever it may be, anyway. But he's managed to get a glimmer in the eye of Ducati or whoever it might be, a satellite team, and he keeps on yelling, I want to come back. So he's going to get a test drive at the Stars for sure. He said Ducati have guaranteed him that. But, it's a lot of fun. So he's back in.
It'll be interesting because we spoke about this with Darren and Tim when they came on the show. There are some riders who just seem to be dedicated, superbike. They're absolute superstars in superbikes. Then they go to MotoGP and they're just not. They're nowhere near as good. But then you have the other thing where some people who are very good on MotoGP come back to superbikes and are midfield at best.
Scott Redding, anyway. But I'll just throw that name out there. But he talks himself up though. Old Scott, he's the best rider there's ever been. But that's a typical pun. When you're not whinging, you got to give yourself a few pat on the back. However, a couple of weeks, 2 weeks in a row. Unfortunately, it does clash this weekend with the Le Mans. So if you do want a little bit of two-wheeled action, have a tune into that as well too. I'm not sure where do we get the MotoGP through? I just usually just check.
That's through KO will. KO will have it. So that's
no
on the
shortage
weekend.
Of two-wheel and four-wheel action over this weekend.
No shortage of all, and of course I'm going to have to somehow squeeze it all into an episode of In Pit Lane next week. It was very hard to squeeze everything in this particular week, so
31 minutes of news next week.
Yeah, tonight, tomorrow night. I mean, we've got the interview now. The interview with Rowan Harmon. As I said, if you have any questions at all, if you're thinking about what's the future of Calder, what's the future of drag racing at Calder, what's the future of the Thunderdome, even what's the future of Adelaide International Raceway, be watching In Pit Lane tomorrow night, 9 o'clock on Channel 31, or on demand from 9:30 on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. And you can hear Rowan go through a lot of the things that are happening, what's happening, what isn't happening, and a few surprising things as well. So you might be surprised. Not sure everybody will be happy about what he has to say, and I think that it'll raise a few questions. But anyway,
I do have a question because you haven't given me any little nudge, winks. I'm usually on the side, finding out a little bit of inside information because I do provide it myself sometimes. That's our job to work together and give some quality content to our viewers, Brett. But did you touch on the subject about the the Motorsport Australia accreditation, or was it FIA approved credit level that they need to race on the track? Did you touch on that subject?
Yeah, that's all covered, and we talk about the modification. There have been modifications made, more modifications still to come. They've done some stuff around the back of the circuit. It's mainly around the back of the circuit. The drag strip area, as Stuart will be able to tell you, we know that was basically resurfaced over the COVID period, and so the main straight is fine. The back straight is a little bumpy, but as lots of the drivers said, it's certainly no worse. In fact, probably not as bad as either Sandown or Queensland Raceway. When you go over the top of Bob's Knob and you go down onto the old back straight, out of the old Repco corner. It used to take it flat. I mean, and even I've only driven around it in sort of Calder Park's Bob's Monaro that he had that just sort of threw the keys to me one day and said, do a few laps if you want. Which I did, and you could basically go flat through there because it was a very minor. So you can't do that anymore. It's now a very much a harder chicane, a harder turn right, a harder turn left. The idea being to basically try and slow down the terminal velocity when you get to the end of the back straight and go into the S's there. So in terms of, and now they've added extra runoff, they've dug in some extra runoff. They've also done something with it. They've also put the runoff on an angle. It's a bit like, as he said, a truck arrestor thing that you see on the road sometimes. So it goes up. So they're hoping that will be cleared by Motorsport Australia for racing. At the moment, they have a Motorsport Australia licence for testing and individual stuff only, but they will be running the AASA Victorian Motor Racing Championships there. That is a definite. That's definitely happening. They're hoping to have the state series, and then they're hoping to have a number of races on regular basis next year. And of course, they've got the Friday drive events for every second Friday. And they're going to try and bring back the regular Wednesday practice sessions, which of course were very famous out at Calder Park. Somebody's put their hand up. wants to run that as well. So they've got lots of bookings already, and make no mistake, we address the whole thing. We address all the thing about the houses coming in and the local council and the noise and all sorts of things. So watch that tomorrow night on the program, and So as you can see, as Roy is saying. Massive
Park
amount of the Spectator Mountain has been dug out for the runoff. Yes, huge. Lots and lots of workers, but there's been a lot of cosmetic stuff done, and incidentally, the Thunderdome. If you have a look, and this has been mentioned by Rowan in the interview, the Thunderdome, when they did the Toyota GR Yaris ad that you see at the moment, basically once they had finished that, once they moved out. The team moved in, and they are doing stuff at the Thunderdome. They're going around. They've killed off all the weeds. They do intend at some stage that something will be done with the Thunderdome. What it is exactly, we don't know, and it's not the highest priority at this stage. But the Thunderdome is definitely on the agenda. So interesting. What's tomorrow night anyway?
Stadium trucks?
Probably not. Probably not again. After the last time. Oh, by the way, yes, we're just running down the bottom to our mate Clay Richards. Good luck in your TCR debut this weekend up at Winton as well. Clay is driving.
Go well.
So good. He's one of the nice guys in
Wakefield Park as well too. Some news come out of that this week, but we can probably
that's all the legal stuff. Everything's cleared now. So Shelley or whatever his name is, he owns Wakefield Park now. Yet again. There's a lot of weasel words in this. We hope to have significant race meetings in the future. So there's lots of things that I'm not 100% sure we're going to see it back in the way that it was. Okay. Right. There you go. Bob married most of it with clean fill. That's what happened basically. That's what Rowan was saying, that as more and more of the fill went in there, it crept further and further down to the track. It also, incidentally, crept further and further over the back, and actually at one stage was encroaching onto the rail line. So they had to get rid of that. But they're doing a lot there. It's All right. There. Okay, everyone.
Yep.
Enjoy Le Mans for this weekend. Enjoy Winton. Enjoy Lamborghinis at the Bend. Whatever you're doing, have a great weekend. From all of us here, we'll see you Thursday night, 9 o'clock on Channel 31.4 in Pit Lane, and next week same time, 8:30 Wednesday night here for Full Course Yellow. Until then, from all of us here, thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Bye, everyone.